My name is Smita Murthy. I'm the CEO of Beagle Security. I'm happy to be here at KDG and speaking with Kyle David, one of our oldest customers of Beagle Security. So happy to be here to have this fireside chat. Kyle,
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself and talk about KDG a little bit?
Sure. My name is Kyle David. I'm President and CEO of KDG. We're a professional services organization based out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. We have a strong interest in ensuring our clients' applications and infrastructure is tightly monitored, maintained, and importantly secure, which is what led us to Beagle Security.
I couldn't have said that better. We're so happy to have your business and really happy that you're such a strong supporter of Beagle Security and our product. Would you tell me how you found out about Beagle Security way back when? This is like 3 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit more. So we have a fairly in-depth process of evaluating applications. And one of the things that we do is we purchase a lot of things on AppSumo. The reason we do that is because, not necessarily because we want to use all those tools as part of our business, but we want to evaluate, okay, what are the things that are coming up in the market? Yeah. What are things that are cutting edge? That's generally where you're going to find disruptive technology. You usually don't find it in incumbent applications. And Beagle Security we never intended to use. It was just something we intended to evaluate and understand, okay, how is it different than the tools that we currently used? And well, what might make the current tools that we use more efficacious. And then we started using it and we said, "Ooh, this is better than our current tool significantly," which for those that have ever purchased a thing on AppSumo, you don't pay a lot, but you can't expect a lot in return. And this was a very disproportionate value balance. We felt like, boy, we paid almost nothing and we were getting just an incredible amount of value as compared to the tool that we were paying a lot for and we thought we were happy with. I mean, quite frankly, you sort of rocked our understanding of what could be possible in a tool like Beagle Security, and ever since it's become more and more of our primary tool.
That's awesome.
We're so grateful for it because it's something that for our team delivers first minute value, meaning they can start using the tool without having any training on it and understand what to do next, which I think is really important in the security space.
Yeah, because there's so many tools in this space. I think the most common thing I hear from most customers is the fact that there's so many tools and everything is telling me here's a problem in security. What do I do with this, right? And like you, I have other customers who've said the fact that we synthesize what needs to be paid attention to, like what's the most important thing to spend your resources on. And the fact that we're also integrated with a lot of the product development lifecycle tools like GitHub, Jira, what have you. And I know that you find valuable as well. The fact that we can integrate with the bug tracking tools. It just gives traceability for where the bug was found, where the vulnerability was found, and whether it's addressed or not.
Yes, and I think that's those tight integrations. A lot of times, as you said, we know with any software, I mean, the software either has problems currently or is going to have problems. I mean, that's just the nature of security. And to have Beagle lay out for us what are the today problems, and then if a tomorrow problem shows up, it just goes right into our workflow. And importantly, it doesn't require somebody with a very in-depth security background to be able to manage. And that's helpful because then we can use people with deep security backgrounds to focus on really important issues instead of the pedestrian ones. And that was, I mean, honestly, when we were evaluating it just as a general tool, boy, that's novel. That is not something we have seen in other places that works as consistently over the course of time. One of the first applications that we onboarded onto Beagle, we have yet to change the configuration now in 3 years.
Wow.
And it's continuously finding vulnerabilities, and then as we patch them, it's of course moving it through our Trello board so that we can see resolution. I can't overstate the value of that in large, complex development cycles. It just sort of slips into the process instead of becoming another process that you have to then adapt to.
Especially with shift left security,
yes.
Right? all the product development life cycles are getting shorter. You want security upstream so that you're not thinking about it as an afterthought. And I can't tell you how many, I worked in very large companies before Beagle, and it's amazing to me that large software companies still don't think about pen testing or security upstream enough. And they think about it, oh my God, yeah, oh, we forgot about the pen testing. I've actually had my VP of engineering tell me that. So it's good to hear that it seamlessly fits into the SDLC, and that you're getting value. And that actually kind of dovetails nicely into my next question, which is, we are doing a ton of competitive replacements right now in the market, and we're very grateful for that. I know we did a competitive replacement at your location as well, without naming names. Can you tell me what stood out? I know you told me what stood out about Beagle Security and how it fit well into your process, but what was lacking in the other solution that you realized after you evaluated Beagle?
I think there was two primary things that they weren't lacking, they were missing. And I think that was key to us understanding that there was a different way. It was a paradigm shift in a sense. And one was just the elegance in which it works into the existing workflow instead of re-engineering a process to run a very high overhead scan. A scan that oftentimes could bring down an application. I mean, that is what it's supposed to do. But the lighter touch, longer effort scan that Beagle offers is far less disruptive, because even if you've got an internal staging server that runs into problems, and it's call the DevOps team, then it's call, and you run into a lot of problems that way. Just moving things through and increasing development velocity. So I mean, I think that was the biggest one of like, whoa. We don't have to continuously destroy things in the name of pen testing, which was powerful. Now, the trade-off, of course, the test takes a lot longer to run, but at the end of the day, it's running at night anyway. It really wasn't disruptive to us. And again, it was understanding that trade-off has real value to us, because it's giving us all the data with less of the disruption. So I think that was point one. But point two was simply, all of these tools that we had evaluated prior to Beagle, they justify their costs based upon the number of things they identify. And so you often get a report that is just replete with, I won't say nonsensical things, but nitpicks upon nitpicks upon nitpicks that are largely a distraction. They don't have a lot to do with true security, but they have a lot to do with making a report look good. And what we immediately noticed about a Beagle report is that, yeah, it looks nice. I mean, that's fine. It's presentable. No client, unless they're in the security business, is going to ever read it or care about it.
Yeah.
But to our dev folks, they can look at it and go, okay, here's our order of operations. This is what I need to knock out first. This is what I need to knock out second. Here's all the context of the problem. And that was an aha moment for us, because we used to have this additional overhead with the reports we were getting from our previous tool of, okay, let's now get out the Ouija board and decipher this report, and then let's self-identify what's really important and what's not. And I mean, they all have the red light, green light, sort of system embedded in them, but they're all 55 layers of granularity, whereas I think there's 4 in Beagle. It's like, do this now, do this soon.
Most important.
Right, exactly. Well, and again, those things are particularly helpful, because there's just no need. I mean, even in very large scale applications, there's just no need for that level of granularity. Just tell me what I need to do and what order I need to do it. And that's been incredibly helpful.
That's really great to hear. So 2 questions follow up for that. When you switched over to Beagle, or when you were evaluating Beagle, did you realize we were an AI first product?
We didn't. We just knew that it worked. And I mean, I'm a big fan of, Deming, who said, people don't want a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. Yeah. That was the 1/4-inch hole we wanted. We didn't care about the drill. We just wanted the output.
Didn't care about the drill bit.
Right.
But gave you the 1/4-inch hole.
Precisely.
So that's one thing that, we actually built the product AI first before. I mean, just about any software product today is AI first. If you're not in the AI business, you're not in the business today. But 3 years ago, when things were still starting, people were like, okay, what's AI? Like, how's it going to disrupt what I do? We did this kind of in a very understated way, where we just said, let's leverage technology to solve a problem more intelligently than we have been solving so far. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, this market had solutions. Clearly, you had other solutions in place. Most of it catered to the very large enterprises. Our mission when we started was to build a solution that was superior, yet affordable for all size businesses. And I think we succeeded in that. Today, we're happy to say we have over 125 customers, paying customers on our platform. So I think that mission has been accomplished, and hopefully we continue to grow from here. And then coming to the reports, tell me a little bit more about the reports, because this is where we're also using large language model based contextual insights. It's obviously targeted for the developer, because based on the tech stack, you get very prescriptive recommendations on what needs to be done, which no one else but the developer is going to care about. And I know we have talked about other types of reports that would be interesting, let's say for someone like you, where it's more a management dashboard, where it's a little bit more high level, rolled up report. So now we have risk scoring, which tells you what's most important, but we're also doing more in terms of overall roll up dashboarding. So tell me about the current report and whether the new thing would be of interest to you.
So the reporting as it stands now is really helpful, as you mentioned, to a developer. I think the new API testing tool is really something that it acts as guardrails, because there's a lot of development tools now that will prevent you from making mistakes. But there's even some things we've found in scanning the API, even after all those things. Okay, here are a couple, they're edge cases, but nice to think about, easy to fix. And having reports that can be very specific and say, this is what you need to fix, not here's a generalized error, go search for it. Obviously, I mean, development velocity goes up, assurance goes up as to like, did we fix the right thing? The ability to rescan and have it say, yes, you got it. I know all tools have that, but again, I really like things when it moves it through the Trello board for you. You don't have to have a CISO, you don't have to have a PM, sort of checking off all of those boxes. But from a management standpoint, I mean, would be very excited about management portals, panels, reports that give an understanding of, okay, this is a risk-based element here. What are the risks, in an enterprise of applications, and every enterprise we know has a multitude of applications, so it's not a single one. Understanding where you're putting your chips in terms of development and maintenance dollars could be really well informed by that type of a dashboard, because obviously if you've got a system that has low yield, low risk, and it's got a few issues, it's not as worthy of your time as a system that's high yield, has high exposure risk, so on and so forth. And also, I mean, we are spending an incredible amount of time right now advising clients on cyber risk insurance policies. Not, of course, as an insurer, but their insurer is coming to the table and saying, okay, we want to see an objective assessment of this client. And some people are very surprised when we run that report of, here is all of the exposure you didn't know you have. And of course, the insurance company is both concerned about the exposure, but concerned that you didn't know.
Yes,
it's a compounding risk to them. So smart tools like this that are fairly easy to implement are, I think, they're management essential tools now. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because actually cyber insurance is a bundling capability that we're looking at. Just because I think when I used to run insurance services for a large company before, and when there was cyber insurance, I actually kind of giggled at it. I was like, what is cyber insurance? But now it's a thing because it's a huge thing because the downside of having a breach is that expensive.
Yeah.
So great to hear that. So let's talk about the future. So this is great. We're happy that you're happy with our product. Please keep giving us feedback because we need the feedback to keep innovating. What do you see as opportunities for growth for the future in this area? Like AppSec in general, pen testing. We're obviously continuously innovating. We want to make sure it reflects what our customers need.
I think one of the things that AI, particularly LLMs, are affording our imagination to consider is the ability of self-healing. So for items that are well known, they're sort of pedestrian fixes, the automated process of fixing it doesn't introduce unnecessary risk. I think it's really important to a lot of organizations because this then adds not only guardrails, but it adds sort of foam rollers to them as well. It not only does it make sure you don't go off the rails, but it makes sure you're staying on the road without a lot of human intervention. And so that's something that really excites me about that space because by the nature of exploits, oftentimes the consumer, even us, I mean, is sizable of an organization as we are and as in tune as we are with these things, we're only going to know about something after a period of time when generally a vendor has had time to do their best resolution. Well, that's not always the time when a malicious party would learn about it as well. And so having something that's continuously monitoring but also self-healing in places where that has opportunity, I think is tremendous. Even just submitting a pull request of here's what AI thinks you should be doing here, that could be tremendously helpful inside of large organizations that do a lot of development. I mean, a lot of our clients have apps, plural. Then that doesn't just mean mobile. That could mean enterprise level web. It could even mean, desktop server for some of the more legacy clients. Those are the types of things that are important. And I think the second really big one is being able to classify and understand the risk levels of data, and then cross-tabulate that with the true risk that is presented. Because, one of the things that clients come to us a lot for is, let's say they bought Beagle or another tool off the shelf, they run it and they go, does this mean I have exposure across my entire enterprise, or does this mean I have exposure to, the database of white elephant gifts for my holiday party? Very big difference. But they both come across as critical red. And so understanding what the risk factor is and what the potential exposure is to that risk factor, it'll make management more informed and happy about that because most management does not have the technical background to be able to navigate those risk reward trade-offs. But we keep talking about cyber liability insurance. Insurers, I mean, we're seeing it a lot now for large organizations. They're just not writing policies unless they truly understand the risk they're underwriting. And if they don't, and they're going to underwrite the policy, I mean, it's a small fortune. Most organizations can't be in business without it. And so it's another area. It's sort of like managing health insurance claims now. You have to understand what your risks are in order to be able to, sleep at night and know you're not going to get blindsided by something that could take you out. Or at the very least, if you did, you can at least rest easy knowing you did everything you were supposed to do. And it's technology. Things happen. Right. That's a much better explanation to an insurance company than I didn't even know I had a risk, and I didn't even know.
That's great. So we dabble with this question where we're thinking about so obviously we built a platform for vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So kind of more in the DAST space of AppSec. Coming from the outside, third-party perspective, which is why we don't have access to the code. We know after it's gone past all of that and it's exposed to the world, we're looking at vulnerabilities from that perspective. But obviously, that alone is not enough. you need static analysis, and there's so many vendors in the market for that. Software composition analysis, especially if you're using third-party software, which just pretty much everyone does. No one writes all software from scratch. So, one of the things that we keep looking at is looking at all of the vulnerabilities found by all of these point solutions and kind of creating a view that allows us to create something what we're calling collective intelligence. We've already started that. We look at obviously various sources of data to be able to then say, okay, this is the risk that this particular application presents or this set of APIs present. We're also looking at combining that with other solutions where the risk is found, like a SaaS tool or an SCA tool. What do you think about that? That's something that we're dabbling with. There are other vendors doing only that, but I think given kind of where we're in the life cycle, I think we have a better chance at actually getting this right from a risk scoring, risk awareness perspective. What do you think about that?
If there are roaches in the dining room, they're all over the kitchen. And so we don't like looking at an application from a view that isn't contextual to how the world is going to see it. It's nonsensical. I mean, it sounds great in a sales presentation, but what it ends up doing in a lot of cases, as we've seen over the years, is it attenuates your instinct to things that are not necessarily important but please a piece of software. And that can lead to just so much bloat in the SDLC. And so looking at it from the outside, okay, if there are problems on the outside, you bet there are problems in the kitchen.
Right.
And so I think it's helpful to have, a both and approach, but at least for us, the and has to come after testing from the outside. We have to understand what different attack vectors are available to a malicious actor, or even somebody that just stumbles upon things. Like, it happens, it's possible. But by doing that, we can generally assess what it looks like in the kitchen pretty well. I mean, I can think of a couple of client examples that I've been privy to of, like, we've run the tool and been like, ooh, we don't need to see the code. We know it's not good. And in doing that, you asked the question about is it helpful to have a collective tool? And I think it is, but I also think the order of operations is really important, because you can just keep adding more and more tools to the toolbox. The toolbox gets heavier, and sometimes it becomes far less efficacious because you got to sort through all the tools, understand how they come together, and
what do I pay attention to?
Precisely.
And that's the number one CISO problem.
Yes.
Right. All CISOs I speak to, or heads of engineering I speak to, they say, great, I've spent all this money on cybersecurity. Everyone's telling me all the different problems, but please give me a synopsis of where I should deploy my limited resources.
Right.
And
that's I mean, truly, that's what made us gravitate towards the product. It answered that question from us from a pen testing standpoint. And, as I already mentioned, our ethos is look at it from the outside first. We already have our own internal standards for things, but that outside view is a really helpful gut check.
Awesome. All right, I have just a couple other questions, but did you have any questions for me?
Sure. I mean, I'd love to just conceptually understand from your standpoint, what excites you the most about Beagle Security today, and what is going to excite you a lot about tomorrow?
Awesome. So I like to tell the story from the perspective of why I took this role. So I've been a product manager for over 25 years. Well, I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm aging myself. I've been in the software industry for a long time. And I've built products from scratch. I've maintained roadmaps of products I inherited. So I have a keen sense of what I'm looking for in a product. And earlier this year, when one of our advisors, who was my engineering counterpart, and I was the product manager at a previous cybersecurity company, he approached me and he said, what do you think about taking the helm of Beagle Security? I said, all right, I'm going to assess the product like I would like a product manager, because that's who I am. And what was most exciting was We have a small team, but like a really mighty team out of Kerala in India, really passionate about cybersecurity. Everyone's a cybersecurity engineer or an AI engineer, and they're really passionate about solving this problem. And that's clearly evidenced in the product. It's a well-designed product. It's sorry, engineers, I'm an engineer myself, but it wasn't something where screens were slapped together. It actually pays attention to the user experience. So it's a well-designed product that works well. It's AI first in a market that is large and growing. So for me, that checked off a lot of boxes for why I should be part of this journey. And I think that's, for me, the exciting thing was the opportunity to for a small company to really make a huge difference. What excites me about the future is the fact that we've actually accomplished our mission I talked about earlier, where we wanted to build an affordable solution for all size businesses, because the small and mid-sized businesses were cut out of the equation for a very long time, where essentially, you know, I've had so many people say, well, we do our pen testing once a year. And that scares me, because I'm like, then you're not secure, right? Why bother, right? Yeah. So the fact that we've changed that mindset, and that it's more as frequently as the code is changing, is awesome. So for me, we've accomplished our mission, but I think long term, our ambition is to change how large enterprises think about this. This AppSec as a whole is getting fairly commoditized, but I think we have like a unique way in which we're solving this problem. And I really would love to see where our large enterprise customers start to see, okay, we've been kind of doing this wrong the whole time, where we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and outsourced it to a third party to do pen testing. So we have a checkbox, right? And here's a tool that's 10x better, probably 10x cheaper,
At least.
and really doing an awesome job at it. And I think that's when we're gonna shift the mindset of all sized customers, and I think that's exciting for me. And that's where we're headed. We are already starting to build what we call collective intelligence, because it's kind of what we need to do our jobs today. I think that's just going to get better over time with all the rest of the integrations that we're looking at doing. And I think you'll just have a very innovative solution going forward for all size businesses.
It's fantastic. And I can attest, we have some very large clients now that have seen exactly what you're talking about. My gosh, I mean, some of them can't believe what a difference it is, and then they understand the price and go, oh my gosh, I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
It is a tremendous value. One of the things that we, really prioritize in partners and technology companies in general is just stability. Are you going to be here tomorrow? Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit what that's like at Beagle Security?
Yeah, very stable. In fact, all of our employees have been with us 3+ years, close to 5 years, before we were even out of stealth and offering the private beta. We've had employees who started at day 0 and been with us throughout. In fact, they wear multiple hats. They're doing whatever they can. Hopefully you've experienced some of our stellar customer service. So those are the unsung heroes really in our business. And yeah, so no turnover so far, and we're doing well from an employee perspective. I think we have...
I was gonna say, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean,
Yeah.
that can't go overstated how important it is when you're, if it's a particularly thorny security issue and you want as many details as possible. I can attest, because I've seen transcripts of chats that can be had at an engineering level with your support team, which, I mean, where do you get that? I mean, that is a tremendous value to the product, and they know the product.
Yes.
It's not some random customer service person who is reading out of a training manual. Like
Right.
having somebody who knows the product and understands the space
Yes.
to be on the other side of that support chat is
Yeah.
just a huge value.
Right. We've in fact had lots of customers actually call out different customer support reps that have been particularly helpful to them. And those are just not customer support reps. These are engineers, these are our cybersecurity. It goes to the point you were making where they understand both sides of it.
Yeah.
And just to further answer your question, we are doing our first capital raise at this point. We were bootstrapped so far. We believe we need to really get an infusion of capital to enable our next level of growth. So optimistic, talking to a lot of investors and hoping to close our round this year.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I think you actually talked about customer support already. Like, any other shout outs for people that have helped you at Beagle in your journey so far?
So I'm not the primary user, so I don't have anybody specific, but I have to say we continuously receive positive feedback from our team. And, you know, it's important. We're running a larger organization, and we don't want to introduce tools that annoy people. Particularly, I mean, you know, these are competent developers. I mean, the average tenure of a KDG developer is over 10 years. So these are not folks that just rolled out of a dorm room, and they want something that's going to give them the information the way they want it, and that has been delivered consistently.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, what would you tell others out there about Beagle Security? Any last words?
You know, more than anything else, and I can say this wholeheartedly, try it once. You don't have a lot to lose, but you do by not trying it. I mean, quite frankly, I think it is one of the more powerful tools I've seen in a long time that addresses a very complex, very nuanced space in a very straightforward manner. And I mean, I think it would be silly not to give it a shot simply because the value exchange is just tremendous.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Really nice speaking with you in person after our multiple phone conversations, and happy that I could drive down and be here with you today. And I thank your office and all the folks and their warmth. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.